Well, family, it's official. They went out and filmed the sun for 24 hours in Antarctica, and I want to go over what changes and what stays the same because there's a lot that stays the same. And when it comes to our Father's truth, His mercy endures forever and His truth endures forever. And you're going to see His truth exposed in new ways thanks to what they have observed in Antarctica. And it's something that is really opening my eyes to not just how far the enemy will go to try and hide the truth, but how much the powers that shouldn't be will try to promote the lies. We've seen that before with YouTube, and we're starting to see that everywhere on every platform. This here is Facebook. It came alive right before the so-called final experiment and started recommending people that I don't follow. And no matter how many times I hit show less, they keep popping up to the very top of the list every single time. It was annoying. And then right after, the news articles started popping up as top searches about this stuff. Flat earthers admitting defeat, admitting that they were wrong. And yes, many were wrong. We're going to go over why they were wrong. But the one thing outside of Operation Mockingbird that stays the same, it's like I said, our Father's truth endures forever. It's provable. And the evidence for the biblical earth still far outweighs the evidence for the sun god model. It's always going to be like that. They have one check mark, and it's the first check mark they've had since I started investigating this. And so I want to go over what that check mark means. Why is it that they saw what they did? And it has nothing to do with them going upside down, filming the sun above their heads, while people in the southern hemisphere were doing the same thing at the same time. That's not what happened. What really happened has everything to do with what's above us, and it's the firmament. And we're going to be looking at that. But before we look at that expanse above us and see how it is we can prove it's there after not only seeing footage of it being there, we're going to look at the proofs that show that what the Father tells us is the final say. Not what some millionaire so called pastor says, but what the Father and His beloved Son and the prophets say about the world. That's the truth, and we can prove it. And when we prove it, it doesn't end up in the news. That's okay. The wisdom of this world is foolishness to our Father, and the wisdom of this world is going to be promoted for that reason. But the long distance photos, observations that are impossible, seemingly dismissed, never put in the headlines because of refraction, are going to be destroyed with what you're going to see. And it has everything to do with things that have been out there for years. Like this proof here from Taboo Conspiracy, Ben, and other fellow truthers working together from FE Core filming a laser over the water. We've talked about this before. And even when Ben was making this observation, I'm using something here for demonstration purposes only. It's not to scale, but it's to demonstrate what he was talking about when he saw the reflection of the laser on the water and the source of the laser across the surface of water that does not curve at a distance of over 21 miles. And the reason this is final and proves that the water is flat on the surface doesn't have anything to do with just the laser. It could bend and curve and match the curve formula somehow miraculously. That could happen. I have never really seen anybody prove that that can happen, but let's just say that it could. Ben said something during that experience that really was telling because he mentioned the reflection on the water hopping over the curve. And he said something along the lines of, do you think that the reflection hopped the curvature as well? I'm not quoting him word for word, but it was something like that. And what you need to understand about that observation is that reflection on the water, it's different than the laser. It would have to shoot upwards and then jackknife and take a sharp right turn to meet the observer and stay below the other laser beam. How would it know where this laser is and to avoid it and stay below it? It doesn't. Light doesn't work that way. That's only possible if the water on the surface is flat. And if water on the surface is flat, that doesn't work on the globe. And that's why other people can replicate that. And these observations are final. You cannot have it working like this on the globe. And the same thing happens when you Look at what physicists were telling Mr. Marconi back in 1901 when he shot a line of sight signal across the Atlantic. Over 504 miles is how tall his radio tower would need to be, but it wasn't. That curvature was missing that day. And since then, we've gone even further, 10,638 miles with the same signal that doesn't curve. And if it is refracting off of some sort of barrier up above us, they call it the ionosphere, but meanwhile penetrating all other gases in the air, there would be dead spots equally measured out in between these places. There's not. This signal reaches its target over a flat surface, and it's a signal that's line of sight, meaning it doesn't curve. You can try and measure how many bounces it would take off the ionosphere to get to this distance, and it is a lot. More than 2 or 3, like their animations are going to show you. The ionosphere would be about the distance of this white dot from the ground, and it would be bouncing hundreds of times to get there. That's not how line of sight signals work, and there's no proof that they can bounce off of the ionosphere. And another thing that was extremely damaging that researchers out there are showing and proving that do not work on the globe, and there's no need to even fly to Antarctica, but there's a reason they didn't film the stars at night on their way there, because they don't rise like they should on a globe. If you're flying around a globe and the nose is tipping downward, the stars should rise. They don't. And that's a final observation. You can make it as many times as you want because it's going to give you the same results as they would on a biblical enclosed system with lights placed in the firmament, just like the word tells us. And if you don't believe in the firmament, well, there's proof of that barrier. Video footage. We've shared it many times. The people who filmed it and flew up above a storm to film it took it down, but it's still there for now for people to look at. And this footage, it does more than just show you the firmament. A lot of people can say it's waves moving across the ionosphere when they see these waves, but we've seen these waves in many places. But before we look at these waves and what you're seeing, I just want to break down for anyone who by chance is here and has no clue what we're talking about lightning sprites. This phenomenon is very mysterious, and it's mysterious for a reason. It wasn't filmed or captured on photo until about the 1980s. And so it's very elusive, it's very fast. It's like trying to take a picture of someone else's camera flash. It's not easy. But these things occur at heights above 60 miles. And that height is not random. They are up there, I believe much further, but the experts believe they are coming out of the ionosphere. The footage we have proves otherwise, and these things are massive. Even according to worldly estimates, these things are many miles tall and many miles wide, almost 60 miles wide. They make Mount Everest look like a giant stone right there. These things are huge and powerful. Millions, if not billions of volts of electricity generated. And when we look at what these things are, they are considered large electrical discharges made up of plasma. Why is this important? How does this prove there's a barrier up above us? Well, because we can replicate it in the lab with an invention made by Nikola Tesla known as the plasma ball. This thing can replicate lightning sprites brilliantly. And where it comes into proving that there's a barrier up above us is when you try to do this without the barrier. If you remove this barrier, it's not going to work. And that's not according to me, that's according to the internet, if you believe Google. No, a plasma ball cannot effectively work without the glass casing. And I thought, well, I could believe Google, or I can see if someone's done this. And sure enough, the king of random is not so random. He has done this recently, destroyed one of these things while it's making lightning sprites to see what happens. And let's see what happens, just in case you don't believe me. Check this out.
Here we go in 3, 2, 1.
There you go. So you can see no lightning sprites. No electric activity shooting out and down from a barrier. It doesn't happen without a barrier. You have to have a barrier to replicate this in the lab. That's why you see waves moving across this barrier before these things shoot out. These things are mentioned in the book of Enoch. Stars are involved. Similar to how you touching the plasma ball makes a lightning strike, stars are involved with this phenomenon. Sounds like science fiction till you flip it upside down and look at it. When you flip it upside down, it looks like waves in the ocean. There are waves on the barrier up above us for a reason. And they haven't just been captured on video by NOVA, they've been captured by astronomers. There are people who go out time and time again and film things that should not happen on the globe. You're not going to see us telling everyone this is final and the news supporting our observations. But you can see it for yourself. It's there. These waves moving across the surface of the moon are there for a reason. This necessitates a barrier. This doesn't happen in deep space. A vacuum chamber is not going to have random waves moving in front of luminaries like that. And it doesn't just happen with the moon, it happens with Jupiter, one of the other chiefs of the stars that we were told in a prophecy, also in Enoch, would leave its orbital path. A generation of sinners would come and take it to be a god, like they have with the other chiefs of the stars. That's why they're all named after Roman deities. And these observations show us why people could not predict what was going to happen in Antarctica accurately, because what's above us impacts what we see above us. And we can prove that in the lab. Just like we can with the plasma ball, you can take any dome type of barrier and try to make predictions of what's going to happen and be wrong because the distances from the dome-like structures, what's beyond, are going to make a difference. Those fluid-like properties that you saw are going to make a difference in where things are perceived to be. And so here's me the other day experimenting with a molten looking glass. You can see it's dome shaped on the top. I'm going to flip it upside down so you're viewing things as if you're under an expanse. And I have an arrow on a sheet of paper. I want you to predict what's going to happen when it goes behind this barrier. And look at that. Doesn't seem to change too much, but look at the side nearest me. You can see that arrow doing something that I didn't predict. I don't think many people would have predicted it to do that, because I didn't predict that. I would have been wrong if I would have made a prediction about what's going to happen with that arrow. Similar to how we could have very well been wrong about what happened in Antarctica with the sun. There's a barrier up above us with lights placed in it. And now here's another time where I want you guys to make predictions. What do you think is going to continue to happen with this arrow behind this barrier that is curved and has water? Well, I was wrong with this as well. I assumed the arrow would just flip directions like it just did, but it does more than that. It doesn't just flip directions. You can move it closer and further and change the effect every single time. It's not always going to do the same thing. We can't predict exactly what's going to happen unless we are allowed to view them over and over again and freely travel and set up places where we can observe these things worldwide all the time. The enemies of truth have been able to do that for decades, guarding the 60th South parallel. And no, there are no guns on top of that plateau of the highest landmass in the world. That's according to the treaty. But in the water, you are going to see warships showing up. That's not a conspiracy. That actually happens. The treaty prevents military operations on the ice, but it's the 60th South parallel that is guarded, not the 60th North parallel. Millions of people live up above that. But when it comes to the southern parallel, almost no one lives there, and it's for a reason. Our predictions of how the things up above us work is contingent on the firmament. It's why the sun, thanks to Dave Weiss, pointed this out, is also squished just like the rainbows in Antarctica are squished. As you get closer to the south, they get shorter for a reason. The sun also gets squished over here. You can see that with David McKeegan's 24-hour sun time lapse. That sun gets squished at certain times. And even a brother named Joseph creating his model of how this could work with the firmament, you'll see the sun getting squished as well. It's powerful stuff. And while there are certain predictions we could make about reality and be right every single time, like seeing too far, rainbows getting shorter, all these things, there's certain predictions we could get wrong because we don't know everything. We don't have all the answers. We haven't been looking into this very long. And people put out fraudulent videos of the 24-hour sun, which was actually pretty smart because it had many people believing it's not possible. And so, what else stays the same? Well, rockets aren't going to just all of a sudden stop avoiding the firmament because of their final experiment. They are going to keep doing the same thing. Planes are not going to start tipping the nose down, because if they did, people would die. If they were accounting for the amount of curvature they would need to account for, hundreds of thousands of feet per flight, their passengers would die. They're still going to fly up and go straight and level like they always have, while rockets go up and come straight back down like they always have. And they will still not produce uncut footage longer than a few minutes for their rocket launches. That's something they should have done time and time again. Planes can do that, balloons can do that, rockets cannot. Always how it's going to be. And another thing that's going to stay the same, the places that are showing us worldly wisdom are going to continue to name their missions after deities because they don't speak for the Most High. And thankfully, to the beloved Son, whose words are not going to change either, when he said, it's going to be like the days of Noah when he comes. And in the days of Noah, he was a conspiracy theorist until the floodgates of the firmament opened up, and we, just like the days of Noah, are going to be conspiracy theorists until the firmament parts like a scroll. Just like we're told it does in Isaiah and in Revelation, it's going to part like a scroll. Deep space isn't going to part. The sun god model doesn't need anything to part. It's a ball flying around at 500,000 miles an hour because nothing exploded. That's not our Father's creation. His creation can be proven to be true with every test you throw at it. And the firmament is going to be the final observation for so many people. And we need to pray that the people who right now, if it were to part, would be their very final observation, that they wake up to our Father's truth. No matter what Operation Mockingbird is doing, we need to be thankful that we have the truth and that it far outweighs the lies. And it's not going to be easy enduring all the lies put out there. I know it hurts your heart. It's tough to see when those articles show up that we were proven wrong. Don't worry about it. We're proving the Father's words are true. The proof is on our side. The truth is on our side, and our Father's Holy Spirit is on our side. Do not lose your peace over this. The truth always wins. And like Elisha said, there are more of us than there are of them. Remember that. When you feel like you're being attacked from all these different angles, there's more of us than there are of them. And we are beyond blessed to see our Father's truth for what it is, in spite of living in a world full of lies. And so have peace, have joy. We are children of the living mighty one who is coming back very soon with his beloved Son to part the heavens like a scroll. And I cannot wait to be brought up there with our inheritance so that our Father can unite with his inheritance. And when his feet touch down on the Mount of Olives, like it says, I can't wait to witness that. It's going to be powerful. Something amazing is going to happen very soon. No matter what is going on with the lies. And their words are not final. Our Father's words are. And the experiments and observations we have are definitely final. There is no curvature. There's no pressurized ball in a vacuum moving at 500,000 miles per hour. The world is just like it seems, and the Father's words are true, and we are blessed to be seeing what we're seeing in these last days. So I hope you guys understand this and it makes sense, because nothing changes. But we definitely need to ramp up our efforts in spreading the truth, exposing the lies, and opening the eyes of those who are being deceived by this world.
Behold, I send you forth as sheep in the midst of wolves. Be ye therefore wise as serpents, and harmless as doves. Let no man deceive himself. If any man among you seemeth to be wise in this world, let him become a fool, that he may be wise. For the wisdom of this world is foolishness with God. For it is written, He taketh the wise in their own craftiness. And again, The Lord knoweth the thoughts of the wise, that they are vain. Therefore let no man glory in men. For all things are yours, whether Paul or Apollos or Cephas or the world or life or death or things present or things to come, all are yours. And ye are Christ's, and Christ is God's.